You're listening to the No Schedule Man podcast with Kevin Bulmer, exploring real stories and lessons learned with a variety of special guests. To learn more about Kevin and to access other episodes of the podcast, please visit noscheduleman.com and connect and contribute at No Schedule Man on Twitter or Instagram and on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud, all /No Schedule Man. Thanks for listening and enjoy the No Schedule Man podcast.
I've been known to struggle with reality, not that it is any real mystery.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bulmer. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you finding us. I hope you're having a terrific day, and I hope this adds something good to it. Would love for you to jump on our email list. You can keep in touch that way by signing up at noscheduleman.com. You'll find it on the upper right-hand corner, and we've got some cool stuff that goes out as a thank you for being in touch, including a 4-part email series on hope, creativity, accountability, and positive action. Would love to know what you think of that. And Deja Vu, there's a clip of that song that is at the very end of every podcast. You'll get that MP3 absolutely free by being a part of our email list at noscheduleman.com. Also, keep in mind, if you're listening on YouTube or if you ever go there, you can find our weekly video blogs, youtube.com/noscheduleman. Something a lot shorter than these podcasts. 2-3 minutes each, once a week, with just a little different thought. And there again, would love for you to share or subscribe. Let me know what you think. Today, we are here to explore the journey of Michael Doyle. Now, Michael is a gifted speaker, a musician, a business coach, and author who believes that everyone has the power to follow their dreams and live their purpose. Peaceful, strong, and happy, he utilizes his natural gifts of humor, intuition, and experience to unleash his clients' full potential. Empowering others has become his passion. Now, at the time of this discussion, he's just about to release his first book, which is called At the Helm, Take Control and Live Fully. So there's a really good chance that if you're listening to this, that book is already released. The release date is set for April 21, 2017. And he mentions the book several times, and we talk a little bit about it specifically toward the end of the discussion, but you can tell that this is something that he's really proud of and has put a lot of hard work into. He's put a lot of hard work into himself as well. The way that I described him as someone who believes everyone has the power to follow their dreams and live their purpose, and doing all the things that he has dreamed of doing, speaking and continuing to dabble in music. Well, not dabble, but live from his love of music and coach others. Fitness is something else that he's deeply passionate about. He wasn't always like that. Like all of the rest of us, it's been a journey. There have been some bumps. There have been some key moments where he had to really take a hard look at the mirror and then make some choices, and he does just a fabulous job of describing each step along the way and the choices that he made and the tools and ideas and actions that he employed to get to become the person that you're going to hear in just a couple of moments. Now, as I was talking to Michael and in the time since, I've smiled to myself a whole bunch of times. I suspect he and I may just have been separated at birth. We're both almost exactly the same age. We both love music, although he's made that much more of his life's work than I have, but it doesn't mean I don't love it. We both went through a period of our lives where we drank way too much. We both gave that up. We each have ties to the Arctic part of Canada, the East Coast part of Canada, and are both currently here in southwestern Ontario. And of course, if you see either of us online or in person, you'll attest that we're both dashingly handsome, he says with his tongue in cheek. But we have a lot in common, and I had this conversation with Michael, and so much of it, I was just sitting here nodding my head like a bobblehead doll. And I'm just so thrilled to see that he's come through as many of the challenges that he has, and that he is sharing and is open to share his story so authentically. To that end, just about everything out of his mouth is quotable. Now, every time I have one of these discussions, what happens is I record them, I leave them for a few days, and then I go back and I listen back to the whole discussion so that I can draw out some key points to point out before or at the beginning of each podcast episode, and also to pull some quotes out, things that I can use to help promote each episode by posting on social media and things like that. Listening back to this particular episode took a long time because I was constantly stopping it to write down what Michael was saying. It felt like every other sentence, and sometimes 2 or 3 thoughts within the same sentence. I thought, that's a quote, that's a quote, that's a quote. It really is terrific stuff. Boiling it all back down, some of the key things that I took from my time with Michael include, number 1, confidence comes last. Now, this seems counter to what we maybe should be thinking about how to jump in the pool or dive into a new endeavor. That you got to get confident and then you can do it. But it's actually the reverse of that. Actually, hearkening back to the most recent episode of the podcast with Doug Vincent, Learn to Do by Doing. How do you learn how to do something? Do it. Doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect right out of the gates. Probably means that you're not going to be. You're going to have some bumps and fall down, but you're going to do these things, and as you start to build the skill, the confidence is going to start to come. As Michael said, if we wait until we have the confidence to do something, we'll probably never do it. He also says, if you start to build skills, that's when the confidence starts to come. Confidence comes last in almost every obstacle that he has worked through. That is such a fundamentally important thing to understand, and something that I wish I'd known 20 years before I did, because I can see of how many experiences I never had in the first part of my life because I was either beating myself up for not being better than I was with the things that I did try, or already judging myself at thinking I wouldn't be good enough to try them in the first place, and so I never got started. So just get started. Don't worry about what I think or what somebody else thinks. Just confidence will come. It comes last, though, so get started. Number 2, being open to receive. If you want good things to come to you, you've got to be open to receiving them and good with having them come your way. I misunderstood this also for a long time, sort of like the idea of loving yourself. That's come up in previous episodes. It took for my life to collapse for me to even read and have my mind open to the idea of loving myself. When I would see or hear that phrase, self-love, then the things that would automatically come into my mind are arrogance and conceit, narcissism, things like that. But that's not what it is at all. It's so much different than that. And being open to receive is something else I've understood, and I've come to understand only in the last couple of years, where I've had a block. Where if somebody is doing something nice for me without me feeling as if I've done something to return that or to earn it, I feel bad about it. I'm looking around the world at wondering where are the results, where's the money, where are the other things that I'm still aspiring to have. But I've only just recently come to realize that I'm actually energetically, and we're going to talk a lot about energy here, Michael is anyway in this conversation, energetically blocking that stuff because I'm not good subconsciously with just allowing it to come my way. So I was fascinated that Michael brought this up, another similarity between he and I. He said being open to receive has been the biggest block that he has had to clear, and he gives a really neat story, an example of moving, going from one place to live to another and not asking for help, feeling like he had to do it all himself, and then kind of getting a scolding from a friend of his. And then the next time he moved, he did ask for help, and he describes what the difference is. So being open to receive. Tune into that for yourself and just make sure that you feel like you're at least aware that path is clear. Allow good things to happen to you. It's okay. And number 3, I love this from Michael, underestimating what we can do in a long period of time. Or as I say in one of my keynote talks, race like a turtle. Just keep at it. Michael says, quote, "We as humans will overestimate what we can do in a short period of time. We'll try to schedule too much and we'll try to do too much. But at the same point, I think we grossly underestimate what we can do in a long period of time. It's about doing little things and being consistent and being intentional." And I think he is absolutely bang on the money, and I love how he summarized that. One of my favorite phrases, little becomes big. I learned that from Colin Cowherd, who is with, I think, Fox Sports now. He used to be with ESPN for a long time on the radio. He would always say, little becomes big. It's true for good things that pile up into something really good, and it's true for the not as good, those little destructive habits. And Michael's going to discuss some of those that contributed to his journey. They pile up into big obstacles and challenges to be overcome. So confidence comes last, being open to receive, and underestimating what we can do in a long period of time are just 3 of a whole bunch of points, and a conversation that is chock full of incredible, quotable content. You are absolutely going to love this guy. Here is the conversation with Michael Doyle on the No Schedule Man podcast. Michael, I see you spent part of your time anyway up in the Arctic. I'm curious about what part of the Arctic you were in.
Yeah, so the Arctic was quite an experience. I'll have to say it's one of those things that is either for you or not for you, and luckily it was for me. I love it. I keep finding myself going back there. But I was on Baffin Island, so Frobisher Bay. So Nunavut became its own territory in '99, and prior to that it was a part of the NWT. But the land claims went through April 1, '99, and I moved up there in September '99. But long story short, I moved to the Arctic for 3 months. My brother and sister were up there, and I stayed for 16 years, so I guess I lost track of time.
I ask because I have a sister who lives in Inuvik and spent almost, I think, 15 years, give or take, in Tuktoyaktuk, which people, when I tell them that, they think it sounds made up, but it's absolutely true. And she fell in love with the lifestyle, and she's still up there.
Yeah, it's a very neat place. And, I can't even say what one thing it is, but it's the energy of the North that I feel drawn to go back there all the time. And I found myself going back every couple of months to do work and workshops and music.
So it was music that brought you up that way?
No, my brother and sister were there, and honestly, I was doing music full-time in Newfoundland. Our band split up because some of the guys had moved away to go take a construction job, and I was just kind of looking for something to do for a few months, and my sister and brother were there. I wanted to go see them, so they were like, why don't you come up for a few months? And I went up to work, and my plan was go up for 3 months and come home before Christmas, and the rest was history. I ended up falling in love with the place.
Boy, we do have some commonalities. My other sister lives in St. John's.
Okay, cool.
I'm afraid to go and visit her because I'm afraid that when I go up and I see all the musicians there, I'm never going to want to come back to London, Michael.
Yeah, George Street is an experience too. I played music full time for years, so I played a lot of the places on George Street, and some of the bars I played are still there, and some are no longer there. So, yeah, I've been doing that for 30 years.
But tell me how you got interested in music initially.
So initially, it couldn't really miss me. Like growing up, there was always music in my home, whether it's the hi-fi or radio playing, or mom and dad or singing around the house. So there was always music. All my aunts and uncles, pretty much they sang or played an instrument. Or I was lucky to be really surrounded by it all the time. But I was 12, almost 13 before I actually started playing. But I always had a love for music, and I love guitar. And I started just before I turned 13, and yeah, I couldn't stop from there. And honestly, every second I've spent with an instrument in my hand, it's never really been frustrating. I've loved the process of learning and growing, and just, I tend to listen to music and I hear it in my head, and then I can sometimes just go pick the guitar up and play what I just heard. But I don't read music.
I hear there is a lot of that, and when I say a lot of that, up in Newfoundland, and particularly where my sister is in St. John's, that you could walk into just about any of the pubs and you would find musicians who are at the level of just about any touring band that you could name, that you could swap them in and out, but they're just happy to do it as part of who they are.
It is a part of who they are. And, I was lucky right out of high school. It's funny, I tried out for an Irish band, and I didn't play Irish music, but my mom came home and said, hey, Degenerate, who's at our school right now, they have an Irish band they've been playing for years, and they're looking for a bass player. And I'm thinking, okay, two things. I don't play bass, and second, I don't play Irish music. But I did need to bring in some money, and the thought of being a band sounded pretty cool. I was just 17 or 18. So I found a Randy Travis cassette and got my uncle's bass and learned the Randy Travis song. And I tried out for the band the next day and made the band. It's funny. He said, I know you're not a bass player, he said, but you're going to have the touch, and we want you in the band. So the rest was history. The boys are very humble but very good musicians. Jack Kehoe and Terrence Kehoe, they were doing it for 25 years when I started with them, and I was very lucky. They were my mentors then, and they still are now. They're just good people, very humble, great about music, and they're all about just sharing the music and having time with family. So it was a really cool environment to learn under.
What are some of the other things that you remember, Michael, about your younger days, when you were a kid, even younger than being a teenager, but just growing up? What are some of the things, music and otherwise, that you remember holding your interest?
I think the biggest thing was my uncles and them had a country band. I love old time country. I love the sound of a steel guitar, their energy and emotion behind old time country. So I remember being in bed and pretending I was sleeping, but my uncles were having a rehearsal in my living room. So there was speakers up to the ceiling back then. The speakers were so big, and steel guitar, bass, drums, the whole nine. And I would just lie awake at night and listen, and Mom would come in and check on me. I'd pretend I was asleep, and she'd leave the room, and I'd open my eyes and listen again. So I listened to the music all night long, and I loved it, and I felt the music and heard it. So it's just something that was, it always brings me to a happy place, I have to say. It's a universal language, I guess,
So when you were going through your teenage years, how much was music the focus in terms of what you thought you were going to be doing with the rest of your life?
I think music became a big focus in high school, and it's funny because I remember, I'm such a social person, and I think one of my superpowers, if you will, is connecting. I love being in social environments and just connecting with like-minded people. I thrive on it. But in high school, my mom was worried that I wasn't being social and that I wasn't going out because every chance I had, I was sat and playing guitar. And I remember in grade 10, my marks were starting to waver a bit in math. And it's funny, I ended up working in finance for years. But she said if I don't bring my math mark up in my midterm, she was taking my guitar until I wrote my finals. And that's all it took. I was like, what? Taking my guitar? So, I had like an 90-something or an 88-something on my midterm. I made sure that the guitar wasn't going anywhere. But I loved just to sit at home and play music, And, it's just been one of those things that was natural for me.
You jumped ahead. Well, you didn't jump ahead. I'm jumping ahead in my mind. And you mentioned something that I wanted to bring up in the response that you just gave me with the numbers. And you say, you struggled with math and you ended up working in the financial industry for a while. How did that all transition and come about of going through your teenage years and then into the work world? Was the financial stuff one of the first things that you did?
No, the workforce, I worked in processing plants and crab plants. I did labor work. I love working with my hands. I love being busy. I love lifting. I like moving, So I wasn't looking to do the desk job. But when I moved up north and was doing the construction, the money was okay, but there was a whole lot more money in sitting at the desk and doing the finance. And my sister was into finance. She was an accountant, CGA accountant, and kind of got me started off to learning some of the bookkeeping. And I did a correspondence course and then just got into working in finance. And I actually came, quite competent and good in finance. And I was the lead financial analyst with the Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development for 13 years up north. So I did that for quite a while. And I ran a bookkeeping company. I did taxes. I ran the very first get your money the next day cashback tax return up north in like 2002 or 2003. So I ended up doing a lot of finance. And, as far as the 9-to-5 sit at a desk job goes, I enjoyed it. I was grateful for what it provided. It wasn't hard for me. I was good at, managing very low stress and seeing the big picture and delivering on deadlines. But at the same time, I knew I wouldn't do it forever. I knew that I was meant to do something else. And in the back of my mind, I always knew I would branch out on my own again. I think I'm entrepreneurial in spirit, and had my first company when I was 21, and I ran a company up north. Even though I did finance for the government, I was running a recording studio. I was running sound for festivals. I was always involved in other things besides just my 9-to-5,
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that I've now branched out to do, go full flat out with my own thing. Yeah.
In the biography that you've got on your website, you describe yourself that at one point that your life took you to a place of being, quote, exhausted, overweight, and stuck. What was going on in your life around the time that you identified yourself as being described that way?
Well, I think, over time, the lifestyle that I was living just wasn't sustainable over time. And it started to creep up on me. And between hitting my 30s and sitting behind a desk and the heavy drinking at night and being the party guy that I was, most of it was harmless fun. But at the same time, it was starting to take its toll on my health, my home life, and my work. So I just got to a point where I realized, habits make us or habits break us. And I had developed a lot of deconstructive habits when it came to my pastime. I was 35 going on 20. So it was just time for a change. And some of us can make a positive change from a place of, things are okay. But I think a lot of times a real shift comes when there's a sense of urgency. And for me in my book, I said, you have to hit rock bottom sometimes in order to produce that urgency to make a change. And for me, I can tell you the date. I can tell you the morning, April 24th, 2010. I woke up from playing the show the night before, and I was tired, depressed, hungover, and my son Timothy was 14 months old. And all the changes I've made ultimately were for me, but Timothy was a huge motivator, and my family was a big motivator. But that was the day for me. There was a shift. It was like internally, I somehow surrendered to struggle on a deeper level, and I asked for help from a higher power. And actually, it'll be 7 years this month. And I'm happy to say, the first 2 years, like a fish out of water, and now it's not in my hemisphere. It's really, I've retrained the neural pathways to such a strong point that my habits and my mindset and what I'm looking to do I can go to a bar and play music or darts or go to a social event, and I don't even think about having a drink anymore. So I'm very lucky that way because it's, I know people that have been sober 40 years and they tell me it's one day at a time. But I think I'm lucky that I've done the healing, I've done the inner work, and I don't need, I think it's a way to self-medicate. People self-medicate because there's things inside that they haven't worked on. So I'm happy to say I'm 42 years old and I don't have any regrets in life. I just move forward with purpose.
Where did alcohol rank on the list of things that leading into April 24th, 2010, you were feeling were contributing to holding you back?
It's funny because in between the binges, I was still I love systems. I was a hard worker and I was still achieving some cool goals. And, get a group of musicians together for a weekend and two friends with a camera, did an album live off the floor. And, we were nominated for that DVD of the year with Sloan and Rankin family. So I was still doing some pretty cool projects, but I was only scratching the surface of what my potential was because so much of my time was being spent with destructive habits, right? So I say I struggled with alcohol for over a decade, and I had tried to quit many times, but it never stuck. And that morning, it wasn't my first time saying I was going to quit, but it was definitely my first time feeling it energetically that I was 100% committed, and I asked for help, and I was ready. And I think when you're ready to make that shift, the universe meets you halfway.
Were you thinking of it that way at that time? I mean, during that decade, did you feel like you were struggling with it? Or was it more only toward the end of that time that you felt that way?
No, it was something that I knew at the back of my mind, and I would tell myself that it wasn't a problem, but I knew it was getting worse. More and more my nights were going missing, and more times I would head out and say, oh, I'm just going to have a few. But once the first few hit, there was, it was an all-nighter again. And again, most of it was harmless fun, but it's just not a good feeling to have pieces of your night missing. And that particular morning, not only I couldn't remember how I got home, but I couldn't even remember the third set of my show. And that was my first time missing a piece of my show. And for some reason, there was one other thing that was a big indicator. February, 2 months before, 2 months before that morning, I had weighed myself at my friend's place. And for the first time ever, it read 200 and something. It was 204. And that was a huge red light because, grade 12, 115 pounds. I was naturally a slender kind of person. So for some reason, hitting over 200 pounds and then having that point that morning, that was the two things that really shifted in me to say, okay, I need to change something because I need to be there for my family and I need to be a role model for my son. And this is not going to get better unless I make changes. And, if you do the same things, you get the same outcome. So I had to change something.
I'm keeping us here for a moment, not to rake you over the coals, Michael. I appreciate you sharing so openly and genuinely, and I just wanted to share as well. And some of this has come up in other episodes of the podcast, but your story sounds so similar to mine. Is that it was probably a window of about a decade from the time where I thought I'm going to have to do something about this at some point. And then there was a lot of trying and going back before finally getting to a point of going, no, I'm just going to change the way that I look at the world and myself, and I'm just going to have this, meaning alcohol, as one of many things, but it was, a keystone habit thing,
right?
Mentally and physically, deciding this just isn't going to be part of my story anymore. But it still is interesting to me because I know from my personal experience that there were a number of attempts to stop making it such a regular part of my routine, which it would be, usually only in the evenings, and as you say, all in good or harmless fun. Never hurt anybody, never got behind the wheel, never missed a work engagement, anything like that. Never let my kids down, but I knew
right
that it had a hold of me, and that as that time went along, I was associating too many things with it. And suddenly, all of a sudden, it just arrived a time when I was ready to change. And it sounds like your experience was very similar.
For sure. And I think we have to accept where we are. One of the steps that I always say before we move on in life or take our life to a new chapter or another level, I think we always need to not only fully assess where we are, but fully accept it. And I think that's the morning where I accepted that I'm to a point where this is a problem, and I'm surrendering their struggle to a higher power. And whether I knew consciously that's what I was doing, when I look back, that's definitely what happened, you know. And my journey has been a snowball effect in the right direction since then, from fitness to personal growth to, you know, wealth mindset, and just knowing what's possible and owning your own potential and the value that you create. You know, I grew up not really being able to say I was good at something, even though I was great at a lot of things. And, you know, I went from listening to some of the greats like J.P. Cormier, who I have a lot of respect for, and a lot of other great musicians who I would listen to and try to learn the songs and pick along to sharing the stage with them and playing jam sessions with them. And, you know, I'm a very competent musician and I love what I do, but it's never been a competition for me. And I've always loved to play with people that were better than me anyway, because that helped me grow and it helped me learn. I was always open to learning from other people. And even now as a coach, I have two main streams, and one is, you know, clarity to grow your business, and the other is more fitness, wellness, mindset, and those habits, or overcoming addiction. That's my two main streams, and I'm very passionate about both. But I think one thing that's helping me is that I'm still always open to learning from everyone, my clients, my colleagues. Feedback is the best thing we can get. There's no negative feedback. Feedback is always a way to assess. I mean, you need to assess the source that's giving you the feedback, of course. But when we take feedback from a constructive place, then we can always adjust as we move forward, right? And it's an ever growing thing. Yeah.
Growth mindset, right?
Growth mindset. And, you know, Tony Robbins talks about the 6 basic human needs. And for me, the two that's been really at the forefront for the last few years are, you know, contribution towards others and personal growth. They're really important to me. I mean, all the other ones are still, we all want love and connection, and certainty, variety, significance. All those things are important. But I think as we get older, we start to worry less about what other people think. You know, I'm 42 and I feel like I'm young, but I've lived a lot of life and I have a lot of experience and I have value to give. And, you know, if I don't see my value, no one else will. So I feel called. It's my divine mandate to serve others, to help people tap into their potential. I'm really passionate about peak performance, and whether it's for your company, your fitness, or just your home life and balance. It's all about being clear, making choices, being consistent, being accountable, you know.
So I'm hearing the 2017 version of Michael Doyle put these these thoughts and ideas into very eloquent phrases, and you've also used some pretty high gain phrases like neural pathways and stuff like that.
Right.
But unless I miss my guess, I'm thinking that probably wasn't the vocabulary that you were using on April 24th and 25th, 2010.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So, like, how did things develop? What were some of the next steps you took on that day and in the time immediately afterward?
For sure. I'm glad you mentioned, because I actually wanted to talk a bit about that, because that's what's really cool about what I do. It's not a quantum leap. I didn't just wake up one morning and make those changes. You don't get to a point of feeling stuck overnight. And the reality is you're not going to get back from it overnight. But it's about making small changes daily over time that have a really big impact over time. And I love, like, so many of the peak performance people, and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all those people, the things they speak of, they're universal principles. And they hold true now, and they'll hold true in 30 years and in 100 years, because we as humans will underestimate what we can do in a short period of time, and we'll try to schedule too much and try to do too much. But at the same point, I think we grossly underestimate what we can do in a long period of time, right? So it's about doing little things and being consistent and being intentional. But for me, I didn't have all this, you know, I spent about 2 years doing mostly personal growth and self-investment, which was a great experience. I'm really glad I'd done it. But to answer your question about the small steps I took at first, it was no longer drinking. And for some reason, I remember talking to my wife on that Sunday, and I said, I think I'm going to walk to work tomorrow. And it was something as simple as, you know, a 25-minute walk, 25 minute. And I started walking to work. And that was the first two things I changed it. I no longer drank, and I started walking to work. And the first month, I lost probably over 20 pounds. And it was a snowball effect. I started to drink water again, and then I started to eat breakfast again, get in tune to what my body needed. And one thing that's crucial, that's really, clarity comes when you are good to your body. If you are eating well, if you are active, if you are feeding your body nourishment and you're staying active, I think you gain energy, you gain clarity, you gain confidence, and you start to, like for me, I started to get into spirituality, reading more books, and And the more I felt like every book I read was the one I was supposed to be reading when I was reading it. And then the synchronicity of people coming into my life. But it wasn't like I sat down and said, okay, I need to create this synchronicity and I need to retrain my neural pathways and I need to get clear. Sometimes we don't know what we need, but all I knew was I didn't no longer want to drink and I wanted to make healthy habits and have healthy changes. So it's about taking those steps, and where you are vibrationally or where you are in your journey, it's going to unfold as it's supposed to. But no matter where you are, everyone is equal and everyone is connected. We're just at different places, right? So it's take it one day at a time, one step at a time.
How did you feel about yourself at that point?
After I made the changes or before?
Well, in the time leading up to that day in April of 2010 and immediately afterwards, just your general sense of self-worth, self-esteem,
For sure.
your view of the world, things like that.
Yeah, I think overall I'm naturally an optimistic person. I think everyone, can work on positive mindset and there's value there, and I work on it all the time. And I think gratitude is something I practice daily now. But I was always energetic and fun and that kind of thing, and pretty optimistic. The glass was always half full for me. But at the same time, I went through a lot of periods of my life feeling down on myself, or guilt for things I might have said or done, or someone holding on to anger for what someone else may have done to me, and just not really letting go of those things. And it wasn't until I took time to get still and do the inner work, and it's uncomfortable. We don't want to do it. I totally get it. But when you take time to do it, and the deeper you dig, the more you grow. And the more we grow, the greater capacity we have to help other people too. So it was about, my mindset was pretty good, but at the same time I struggled with depression and low energy. And it was just highs and lows. It was no consistency just because of my habits, right? Alcohol, would feed me, and then the next day you'd be tired, hungover, and you also have that depressing feeling. For me, I know alcohol the next day would make me feel very down,
I wonder if, and this is complete fantasy land stuff here, Michael. I'm feeling though that maybe you'll go with me and indulge me here.
Okay.
But imagine if a 2009 version of Michael Doyle could meet the 2017 version of him. I wonder what the 2009 version would think.
I think you'd be pretty stoked. If I was to be able to talk to my 2009 self, the best advice I think anyone can get, or that I've gotten, is be yourself. We spend so much of our time trying to be what we're not, or thinking about what someone else wants to hear or what someone else might think. And the truth is, most people are not thinking about us at all. We just got to live our life and be true to ourselves. Everyone else is taken, so just be yourself, And even when I did job interviews a few years ago, a friend of mine said, just be yourself. And that's what I did. When he asked me a question, it was refreshing to not overthink it. Oh, what should I say here? Even now, as you're asking these different questions, I'm not thinking about what should I say or what answer are you looking for. I'm sharing my story because I know my story. So it's effortless for me to share it. And it's real and it's authentic, and people can hear it. People can feel it. So the power in being yourself. I did a workshop a week ago for some staff of a company here, and it was called Your Authentic Self Equals Success. Because I think when we're being ourselves, we're in alignment, and if we're in alignment, then we're going to be on the right track and headed in the right direction.
At what point then, after you decided to consciously make that change, did you feel like you were really tuning into who the authentic Michael Doyle really was?
It took a while. I would say over a year for sure, maybe even 2 years. But it eventually hit. And, I had been to a course years before that was linked to A Course in Miracles, and I did The Power of Clearing. And there was things that I cleared 8 years before that I didn't realize energetically were being released. And, someone said to me there, he said, you have a lot of fire. It's okay to let it out, right? They're like, don't burn people up on the sidewalk, but let your fire out, And I didn't really know what it meant at the time. And it wasn't until I started writing my book and after I made all these changes that I realized it's about everyone has their, personal power, their inner power, and that they can embrace that and follow it and trust it, so that we all have the power to do that. We all have the power to make changes. We can't always, control the outcome of something, but we can always control how we react to it.
I want to ask you more about the power of clearing, and the reason why is that I know of people that are going to listen to this, and some that I know personally that I've reached out to and that have reached out to me, that have come to realize struggles similar to what you and I have both just described. And many of them I know that are still struggling and can't see a way past making the choice to go forward. Can you tell me a little bit more about the power of clearing and what that is?
Yeah, so the power of clearing, Sandy Levy-London came up with the power of clearing, and it's linked to A Course in Miracles. A lot of spiritual teachings and books are linked to A Course in Miracles, but it's basically taking you through a 3-step process where you talk about what the ego's thinking, and long story short, you basically clear the energy around the negative thoughts and negative beliefs, and you realize your innocence or your connectedness to your source, and that you're innocent. And for me, I remember doing a clearing. I write about this in my book, but my whole body shook, and all I had to do was say one sentence. We were at the very end of the clearing, and I needed to say, I am innocent. That's all I had to say. And for 20 minutes, my body shook, and I trembled, and I cried. It was a powerful release. I didn't realize how much guilt I was holding in for things that I may have said or done in the past. And sometimes we bury things instead of processing, And for me, when I did that clearing, it's great that it's called the power of clearing, because there is a lot of power in clearing those things. Because I don't think I'd be able to do the things I'm doing now if I hadn't cleared that. I'm happy with where I am in life. I feel driven to keep moving forward. I'm probably not always doing everything the way it's supposed to be or perfect, but I'm always doing the best I can with the knowledge and experience that I have. And I'm just going to adjust and move forward. I don't think there's failures. I think there's only outcomes that we adjust and move forward. Successful people say fail forward. And I'm really passionate about managing fear. And people that are on the brink of feeling stuck, they can realize that they may feel stuck, but the world is made up of matter and energy, and everything's always moving. We're stuck in our thoughts, and if we're stuck in our habits, and if we think the same and act the same, we'll get the same result. But if they want something different, they don't need to be overwhelmed with all the things they need to change. They just need to make a commitment to change one thing for one day, and that next day the same thing. The Serenity Prayer really helped me on my journey. And the funny thing was, 2 years later, I found out, I didn't go to AA. I just made the choice that morning. I was lucky that I had the guidance and the support around me to do that and make that change. But the AA 12-step, it's a great program, and it's helped a lot of people. And the Serenity Prayer is a big part of that, which I didn't know. But I had a counselor in Iqaluit that shared the Serenity Prayer with me, and I think it really helped. When you stop worrying about the things you cannot change, it does two things. It helps you have more energy. It takes stress off you. It really does. I try to never spin my wheels on things I have no control over, because what's the point?
I was slow to pick that up, Michael, but once I did, my experience was similar to yours. And
yeah?
I wish, my 14-year-old son and I talk about this kind of stuff, and he's got a 2 or 3 decade head start on me by dialoguing about these kinds of things now. But back to your path, clearing things and understanding, drawing an awareness toward some of the things that you didn't even realize that you were carrying with you, thinking about yourself, feeling about yourself and your experience, is one very important aspect of it that I've also encountered, at first quite in spite of myself, because like you, I didn't realize what baggage I was carrying around, and was quite shocked to find out that I didn't think as much of myself as I really thought I did. But to bring it back and again make it more about you than about me, there's that part of it, but then there's the part of it of, I mentioned that you said neural pathways.
Yeah.
Getting the things into your mind and your subconscious and your automatic thinking and doing and habitual thinking and acting that are more empowering. What are some of the things that you did to start building those pathways?
For sure. And honestly, it's, the whole thing, garbage in, garbage out, but it's what you feed your mind. I literally spend 98% of my time feeding my brain something that's uplifting, inspiring, or personal growth, something that's going to motivate me, elevate me, keep me moving forward. And I'll talk later about the importance of support too. I have people in my circle of influence that will support, elevate, or motivate me when I need it, because we all have, it's not a straight line, and it's the contrast. You have to learn to appreciate the contrast, appreciate the struggle, and know that every struggle is an opportunity to learn something and to be a little bit stronger at the other end. And a lot of times our pain becomes our power. For everything I'm doing now, in a lot of cases in my book, my pain has become my power because I'm sharing and I'm helping other people. And I realize that we have the power to inspire other people. We have to motivate other people. And if you just change one thing, that could change the trajectory of them in a positive way for years to come, right? And it's like the analogy of the boy on the beach with the starfish. I'm sure you've heard this one, and it's overused, but at the same time, it's really true. He's like, what are you doing it for? You'll never save them all. And he's like, I just saved that one, right? So it's about making small changes over time and impacting the people around you. But you need to be open to receive. My biggest block was I was a fixer, I was a helper, and I was closed to receiving. No, I didn't want help. I thought I had to do it all myself. I thought I had to keep everything inside. And it's funny, I moved apartments up north one time, and a good friend of mine, Charlotte Mully, again, I keep going back to the book, but that's what's fresh in my head right now because I just had to do the final edits. But she reminded me, she's like, when did you move? Like, who helped you? And I said, oh, I did it myself. And, she was like, Michael, you're always there to help other people and to help other people move. Why would you, the next time you move, you better ask for help. And, the next time I moved, I asked for help and it was fun. And she was one of the first ones there to help me. So it was a lesson learned. I think we sometimes don't realize that the analogy of the cups I love as well. You can't give from an empty cup. So unless you let people fill your cup as well, you can't keep giving.
It feels like you're telling so much of my story, Michael. I'm just sitting here nodding my head. Well, that was one of the things that needed clearing for me that I didn't know I was carrying around. You're looking around the world, and you're a good person. You take care of your relationships. Your bills are all paid. You don't break the law. You're not hurting anybody, but you're wondering where stuff is.
Yeah.
Right. Until you finally realize one day that you feel like you're actually doing something wrong by accepting a kindness. And for me, Michael, it could have been as simple as a compliment. I didn't even know how to take one of those. I would deflect it. And I thought that was the noble thing to do when I
exactly.
And I didn't know any better.
Yep. That was me. 100%. And I think it's very common. There's a lot of patterns that we have, and it's just through belief systems. We talked a little bit earlier about neuropathways, but, we never get rid of all the pathways. They're still there, but we can definitely change what ones are dominant. And for me, I'm a coach, but I have a coach. I see the value. I have an NLP coach in Toronto, Joanna Lopez. She's awesome. I thought I just needed accountability to write my book, but she's helped me with blocks. She's helped me look at my company in a different way. She helped me in so many different ways because sometimes we are too close to it to see it. Even though I help people with their business and I can see it, I'm too close to mine to always see it. And I'll step back and she'll say it, and I'm like, you're right. And if a coach asks the right questions, we usually know the answers. But common sense, like Brendan Burchard says, is not always common practice. So we need that outside vantage point. We need that support, and more importantly, we need accountability. Because if you're not accountable, and if you don't have a plan, if you don't know where you want to go, then you probably won't get there, right? So I have a trainer that I live with. I have a coach that coaches me, and it's seeing the value in having that support. And one time I wouldn't open myself up for that support, but honestly, I say now, like, self-investment is not only the best thing we can do for ourselves, but it's the best thing we can do for the people around us as well. Like, I'm a better father to my son because I self-invest in myself. It doesn't mean that I spend 24/7 worrying about me and doing things that I need, but it does mean that I respect my needs and take time to do things that I know will help me grow personally, so that I can be there for him. Yeah.
This is all coming fast and furious. You've had a very busy almost 7 years from the time that we're recording this. But you said that it took, was it a year or 2 years? Or anyway, it was a period of time after you had your kind of aha moment on April 24th, 2010. At what point did you start feeling like you were starting to realize what I'll call your true purpose? And what were some of the first signs that showed themselves to you?
I think I'm actually getting a cold shiver thinking about it because I signed up for, I'm a trainer now and I have 3 certifications. I don't work as a trainer, but it's one of the things I help my clients with as a coach because I'm passionate about fitness and nutrition. But what I've learned is that I signed up with Precision Nutrition. And I signed up for a 1-year program, and it was called Men's Coaching. It was all online, and every day I'd have to log in. They'd give you a new habit every week or every 2 weeks. Once a week you had to do measurements. Once every 4 weeks you had to take a picture of yourself. And, I had cleaned up my nutrition. I had quit drinking. I had lost weight. I had done the triathlon. I was in really good shape, but I didn't know enough about nutrition and lifting and protein to be. I was losing too much muscle mass too because I was doing cardio, cardio, cardio. Some days I would run, bike, and swim all in the one day, because triathlons are cardio, cardio, cardio. So finding that balance, I joined Precision Nutrition because I felt I had taken my fitness to whatever level I could with the knowledge I had, then I needed something more, right? So when I went with Precision Nutrition, I always had acid uric reflux. I had really bad heartburn. I had to take a pill a day, keep the doctor away. So I used to take Pantaloc, one a day, and if I went 2 or 3 days without taking that pill, I had excruciating heartburn. And even 5 years after quitting drinking, that was still there. Even though my nutrition was clean, I was active, I was working out. But I did this Precision Nutrition, and 6 months in, there was a real big shift. But 6 months into this program, I felt like I got to a point where my nutrition, my mindset, my habits were at a place where I had clarity, I had more confidence, I felt more driven, and all of a sudden I didn't have to take the pills anymore. It's been well over 2 years. I haven't taken it anymore. So I no longer take prescription meds for acid uric reflux. I still have my pizza every Saturday. I still drink coffee every morning, but I never have heartburn. So I'm doing something right. My body is liking what I'm doing. And one thing I've learned is your body is really forgiving. It's kind of cool. But I think I started to really know my purpose when I was working at Good Life and starting my book, because Christine Kane talks about there's 2 types of intention from and intention to. As much as I loved the North, I knew it was time for me, my family, and my son to move. And I was looking at jobs. I was looking at jobs in Halifax. I was looking at jobs in Ontario, looking at jobs in Newfoundland, because we have family in all 3 places. And when I realized that day sitting at my desk, I was like, apart from getting my family and I somewhere else, there's nothing about these jobs I'm excited about. Yes, I could do them, but do I energetically feel like that's something I want to do? And I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and he's awesome, but he's really funny too. He's a realist, let's just say that, okay? And he will always counteract what you're saying. And he would say, I talked one day about what I wanted to do, and I said, I think I'm looking at these jobs. I said, I'm really passionate about fitness. I think I want to work in fitness. And he's like, well, what does that look like? I'm like, whatever it's supposed to look like. And he said, where would you work? I'm like, wherever I'm supposed to work. He's like, you got to stop answering like that. I was driving him crazy, right? And I said, well, I do my certification to be a trainer, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't realize it, but it was intention from to get me out of the North. But, it's funny because we had that conversation. He went back to his desk, and I kid you not, within 60 seconds, I got an email from Precision Nutrition. And the email said, looking for a career in fitness. And it talked about all the different places, great place to get your certification, great place to learn nutrition. And within a week, I'd signed up for 2 of the 3 links that were in that email. And within 6 months, I had 3 certifications. That's one thing about me. I can't half do anything. I'm either all or nothing. So anything I do it fully. I play darts. I love darts. My dad started one of the first dart leagues back home years ago in a place called the Twine Loft. But, I travel to BC, travel to Young Life, playing nationals with the Elks. And I've actually won championships there. But it's not something I spend a lot of time doing, but it's something I used to spend a lot of time doing. Same thing with guitar. But unfortunately, with drinking, that was the case as well. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to be really good at it, Yep. So I had it down to a science, and I drank a lot. But again, it was a destructive habit. So now I find fitness, I didn't see this happen, but fitness and nutrition really took the place of all the time I was spending in the bar. And I didn't see it, but slowly over time, something had to fill that space, right? And I filled a destructive habit with a constructive habit. And what happened was I got working a Good Life, and as much as Good Life was awesome, and the people there was excellent, and my boss was excellent, very knowledgeable, and I learned lots. But 7 weeks in, I knew that energetically, this is one of the ways I can help people, and I'm passionate about it, and it's a big part of my journey. But this is not the full capacity of how I want to help people. I want to coach people. I want to finish my book, and I was there 7 or 8 hours and only spend an hour on my book because I want to time with my family, So family time is really important to me, and time with my son, and balance. Everything I think in life, less is more, and balance. And the more clarity you have, the less you need to do. You still have work to do, and I work a lot, but I also spend a lot of time doing the things I love to do. And the good thing is I love doing my work because it never feels like work. I'm so passionate about it. But I'm kind of segueing a bit here, but I basically 6 months into Precision Nutrition, I started to be in a place of power, and I went through the rest of the program, no longer taking anything for heartburn. I realized that how forgiving the body can be when you're good to it again. I had abused it for years, and now I was looking 13 years later, and I look younger than I did 13 years ago. It was like people told me I found the fountain of youth, and it's kind of cool that your body's that forgiving when you're good to it.
You said something like energetically you knew that, and I'm talking about the time when you arrived at Good Life and were there, I think you said maybe about 7 weeks in. And you said energetically you knew that was part of the story, but not the whole story.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that for me a little bit? What do you mean more by energetically? How might people know if they're having a similar experience, or if somebody that has never evaluated something for, what's he talking about energetically? Like, how did you know that's what was happening?
Okay, so I would be sitting doing consultations with potential clients, and there was something in the back of my mind going, don't commit to them, don't sign them up, don't tell them you're going to stay and help them for the next year, because a part of me knew that I was going to move on and do something else. A part of me knew that I really wanted to be writing my book, and I felt, I spent 16 years up north with 3 or 4 weeks off a year. I worked around, all year long, and I did that for 16 years. And I felt this was my time to be at home when my little boy got out of school, and to be at home and work on my book, and to start doing the self-investment things that I've been wanting to do, that I've been kind of doing half-time on the side, that, let's just go and do a full year of who do I have to become to do the things I want to do, and just start working in those areas. And that's what I did. And, public speaking was one of them, and now I'm quite comfortable. I've done a lot of talks, but I didn't care if there was 15,000 people there. If I had a guitar, I'm happy. I'm as comfortable as sitting in my living room. I love it. I actually love it. The more people, the better, because I use that energy to play my music. But take away the guitar and ask me to talk about something different, and it's a different kettle of fish for me. And I had to really find my voice. And I knew if I was going to be a coach and I was going to release my book and do talks, that I would have to get that voice and to hold workshops. So just vocalizing that out loud, that was the first step. Energetically, I had already set that in motion. Then I started to walk around the house talking to myself, basically like a fool when no one was home, practicing my speaking. Then I got brave enough to get a camera and record myself on video doing mock speeches and stuff and critiquing myself. And I went from that to signing on to Toastmasters. And I went from that to going to a Mo Mondays, loving it so much that I went home and signed up to speak. In March 2016, I spoke at Mo Mondays for the first time, and I told my story in front of almost 500 people. But I believe jumping the net will appear. I was only about 60 seconds into that speech. It was my first time sharing my personal story in public, and 60 seconds in, I made them laugh, and energetically, I was like, I got this. I was in my comfort zone. And the rest of the speech, when I watched it back, and usually we're our worst critic, but I looked back at it, and I was really pleased with it. And I knew that jumping the net will appear, and that I'm meant to tell my story, and that you just need to build those skills. And was it a perfect speech? Well, it was a fun speech. It was what it was supposed to be that night. It's just a chapter in time. And the more I tell my story, the more people I reach, and I'll keep getting better at it. Repetition is the mother of skill, right? So if we wait till we have the confidence to do something, we'll probably never do it. Christine Kane did this awesome confidence wheel, and I actually got permission from her to use it in some of my workshops and stuff, because it takes you through 4 steps. And it's the first one is commitment, then is courage, then is skills, and then is confidence. And I thought about it, and I picked several things that I've worked through in my life. And the first thing happened to commitment. When I got over the fear of deep water, I couldn't even walk by deep water. I didn't have to be in it. I could be just walking by it, and I would get a tight feeling in my chest. But I made a commitment to get over the fear. That was step 1. Step 2, I had to get courage to actually get in the water and train. So I had someone up north train me 2 times a week. Then I had to get courage to actually sign up for a triathlon. Okay, 9 months' time, I need to know how to swim in deep water and do a 500-meter swim, because it was a sprint triathlon. And the more I did it, I started to develop some skills. So commitment, courage to take action. You do action a few times, you start to build skills. Once you start to build skills, that's when the confidence starts to come. Confidence comes last in almost every obstacle I've worked through. It's a commitment, action, or courage to take that action. Then you build skills, and then you get confidence. So knowing that now, I'm like, you know what? I just need to take action.
I'm making notes. Wow, that's why there's a pause.
Okay, it's all good.
No, it's all really, really good, Michael, and you're tossing so much at me to digest, which is terrific because it's indicative of how you can be going along at the speed that you think life is supposed to go. Yeah. But then when you can identify that you've essentially been driving with the parking brake on, you jump into another lane and things can start to accelerate quickly, can't they?
For sure. And I'm feeling that, I'm seeing that. And, it's not, I'm not saying that I've made this choice and it's been a walk in the park. There's been lots of ups and downs, lots of struggle. And there's mornings I've woke up and I'm almost paralyzed with fear. Like, what am I doing? I have this, I have that, and bills. But you know what? I think the only way we can fail is if we stop trying, right? We just got to keep moving forward. And I feel even now that things are really picking up and it's starting to work. I put in the time and I feel the universe will test you. There'll be a point where like the guy that stopped 3 feet from goal, you'll either keep moving forward or you'll go back to your, doing something that's safe. But for me, I had a safety net with the government and, it was great working for them, but I knew I needed to let go of that safety net. I have 5 years. I took relocate with spouse and I could go back to the north and I could have got a job of the same or equal pay, or I could have got put on priority hire. But I had 5 years that I could go back to the federal government because I was with them 13 years. And the type of leave I'd taken, I had that 5-year window. But December that year in London, when I started my book, I resigned and I let the safety net go. Because I knew energetically my personality type, if I have plan B, I'm planning for A not to work. And lots of people would say that's reckless. And it's funny, I told that to one of my friends. And the friend I told it to, I thought he'd be the first to say, "You're crazy. Why did you do that?" But he looked at me and he goes, "No, I get it. That's your personality. You're totally right. I totally understand why you did that." And I was blown away by it because I wasn't expecting that reaction, right? But when I did that, when I sent that letter of resignation, it wasn't a fear or what did I just do. It was literally a sigh of release. I just felt like that was the right thing to do, and I'm all in. I'm doing what I'm doing.
What happened in the immediate aftermath of that?
I just kept moving forward, kept working on my book, did my coaching certification. I've done, I did several other courses after that, a Tony Robbins course, Christine Caines course, Brendan Burchard course. But I also realized I got to a point where I was just stalling and, the paralysis by analysis. I just kept doing, maybe I need this course, maybe I need that course. But really, I just needed to get out there and start helping people. So sometimes we're afraid of failing, and more times we're also afraid of our success and the power that we actually have. So I think it's important. Indecisiveness will kill any dream, and imperfect action is the best action you can take at the time. I always say, just make a decision and do something. If it's not the right decision or a perfect decision, we'll adjust as we go. But don't stay on the fence. Move forward. Just make a decision and go with it,
You've mentioned your book several times here over the last half hour or so, and I'm getting the sense that this is something that has been really important to you for quite some time now, and that you're very, very proud of. Am I right?
Oh, for sure. I'm very proud, and it's exceeded my expectation, and I had a lot of key people involved that supported this process. But I'm actually releasing my book. It's called At the Helm. And, I'd be journaling sometimes, and I'd write "at the helm," quotation, "at the helm." And I didn't really know why I was writing it all the time, but it was a metaphor of, taking control. So my book is called At the Helm, Take Control and Live Fully. And I think we all have to steer our own ship in life. And we can't always control the outcome, but we can always control how we react to it and what we do moving forward, right? So I think our mindset and our vantage point is huge. I think being open to receive is huge. I think having the right support. Eventually, I came up with a system, and it's called the Clearing Foundation process. There's 5 pillars. And I can talk literally all day on any one of those pillars, because what I love about it is I believe fully in the pillars, and I live the pillars. I walk the talk. Now, am I 100% consistent? Totally not. About a week and a half ago, I realized for the first time in 6 years, I was so busy do, and getting things done that I wasn't getting my lifts in. I wasn't doing my workouts, which it's not. I need to walk the talk. So I said to my coach, hey, I need to be held accountable to my workouts. And the second I did that, the last 7 days, I've lifted 6 times. So you need that self-awareness, right? To readjust. It's not like I'm a coach, so my life is perfect and I do everything right. Of course not. I'm human and I make all the same mistakes that everyone else does. But I have people to support me and keep me going. And I always take time to be still, and that's when you can assess where you are and just adjust accordingly, right? But this book, I thought about how I wanted to help people, and I think the most powerful way I'm helping people right now is my one-on-one coaching, because it's you really get to dig into everything. But at the same time, my workshop, I'm developing it into an online course. My book, I'm hoping to reach millions of people, and that's my goal. And I've set lofty goals, and I say that within the next 5 to 10 years, I want to be one of the global leaders with Brendan Burchard and those guys, because I have a divine mandate to serve people, and why not me? Why not me? Why not now? So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
There's absolutely no reason why not, Michael. And I'm excited for you with this book coming out. I'm wondering if we can go back to the spark of when that became what you knew was going to be part of your story. Like, I'm guessing that you're going to say energetically it came up somewhere along that you knew okay, it's time to start working on. But I want to give people an idea that of how these things can manifest in the work that it takes, because from what I'm hearing, it sounds to me like this has been part of your journey for quite a little while now, that you've been very passionate about, and it's been playing out. But can you take me to the beginning of that?
For sure, I can take you exactly. I'm there right now, and I'm sitting at my desk at Aboriginal Affairs, and I'm on the phone with my friend Jimmy Inch, and he's in Halifax, and I'm telling about the fitness things and nutrition, and talking about some of the things I want to do. And he said, Michael, he said, everything you're saying, he said, it sounds like a book to me. Honestly, I think you should write a book. And the funny thing is, I never considered myself a writer, but something about and again, you're right, I'm going to say energetically, my state that time in that conversation, I was motivated, I was passionate, I was talking about things I loved. And when he made that suggestion, he planted that seed, and I accepted it, and I was open to the possibility. And I started a book, and it's taken on the shape that I didn't know it would. But I credit him to sparking that idea in the first place. And I've been known to take advice and run with it. So that was one of those things. But I will say, of all the things I've done and achieved, and, I've probably performed on, produced, or recorded over 20 albums. I played festivals. I've done sound for festivals, and all things that some people would find stressful. And there was no stress in any of it. I just loved doing it. But this book was very daunting for me because, we all have that negative self-talk, and it's something I talk a lot about. But what's cool is the point that this book has actually come to fruition, and it goes to print tomorrow. I'm releasing at the Root Cellar here in London on the 21st of April from 7 to 9 p.m. But the whole fact that this has come to fruition is a direct relation to me using those 5 pillars. To me, it shows that the 5 pillars work if you do the things that are in those pillars. And no one else is going to have my journey. We're all different. No one's going to look at pillar 1 the same as I do, or pillar 3. But I fully believe that someone will get something from every pillar. There's something they can get from everything there, and they just need to be open to it. And I know that I wrote that book from a place of authentic passion and purpose to serve people and to help people tap into their potential. And I'm really excited to see where it goes.
How long have you been working on it?
I would say almost a year and a half. Like, it went on, I won't say a back burner, but it went to the wayside for a few months because there was just other things I had to do, other things I had to work on. And quite honestly, I think it was meant to sit for a while, because when I went back to it, I was fresh. I had learned so much more, and I felt I had way more content to add. And, it's awesome. Simone Graham is my editor. Carolyn McNally is my graphic designer. And, I have people that supported the process for me. And it's been really cool to have that support and that vision and see it come to fruition. It's if I waited till I had 5 hours every day to write a book, I'd never write a book. But it's about making that commitment. And if you only have an hour, then spend that hour. Facebook's off, your phone is off, and for that hour, you were working on what you're like. I'm all about time blocking, multitasking, and time management are 2 different things. Don't multitask, but manage your time and time block. And I'm just really passionate about all the pillars. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. There's going to be music, of course, at the release, healthy food, healthy drinks, there won't be any alcohol just because of my story, my journey, my message. I'm all about getting clear first. And I think when people get their nutrition and fitness in check, a lot of positive things will follow. Because for me, I didn't fully answer your question earlier about when I knew I was driven with my purpose too. But it was within that 12-month period of really cleaning up my nutrition and tracking and getting myself to a fitness level that I had never gotten to before. And that's when I realized the power of our thoughts, the power of about 6 months in, my mindset changed and my nutrition was the same, my workouts were the same, but my results started to come when my mind changed. We don't realize how much power our thoughts are too. So, if Henry Ford, I think, said, if you believe you can't, you're right, and if you believe you can, you're right. But belief is really important. Yeah.
You said earlier that we underestimate what we can do in a long period of time. And I wrote that down, and that's been my experience as well, because I never feel like I'm getting enough done I always over commit, at least in terms of things that I think I should be able to get done in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. And yet, when I look back at the collective experience that I get to enjoy from the act of moving forward and continuing to act and to do as best I can, I'm astounded at how that adds up over the long haul. And so I think it's really valuable for you to share about the process of, it's not just, I think I'll write a book, and then you block out a weekend at a cabin and you crank one out. I suppose you could do that, but people
do it for sure. But for me, it wasn't that. It definitely wasn't that for me. It was a process. It was a journey, and I think it was meant to be the shape it was because it's how the pillars got formed. So yeah.
Well, I think the other really important part of this, and why I'm focus on this here for just a second, Michael, is the second part to that, which was giving yourself the space from it, so that to let it kind of marinate and then go back to it. It's amazing how it looks and reads, and I think this is true of just about anything that we're working on. If we can just get separate from it for a little bit, it's amazing how that changes our perspective on it when we go back to it.
Yeah, because energetically we've had a reboot, and it's it helps to have that time, the downtime too. If we're pushing against it, then we probably need to take a break from it. If it's flowing, it's flowing. Now, I think there's a lot to be said in being consistent for sure, but at the same time, if it's more work than passion, then you should probably take a break from it, right? Yeah.
Well, this is good. This episode. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, it's like studying. I went back to school when I was 35. I did my business diploma accounting, and I had so many people in the class that were awesome, but they were saying they were stressed or they were this or they were that, and they're like, where do you find time to lift? Where do you find time to go for a run? I'm like, how do I not find time? I'm like, I can sit and study for a while, but then when I go for my run, I process what I just said, or I go for a drive. I take that time, or I go with Timothy to the playground for an hour, and then I go back to my books again. And I was strategic, and I took good notes, and I paid attention in class. So I was spending, sometimes half the time on the books, but I was absorbing a lot in class, and I was being strategic about how I studied and when I studied. And, I think that's, I was in my 30s, and I just had learned a lot. So I had the work ethic of, working full time for that many years. So I just took that same work ethic to school, and all of a sudden I passed with a 94 average. But grade 12, I definitely wasn't your 94 average student. The potential was always there, but I just didn't have the habits, right? So it is habits that will make or break you. Yeah.
You've shared so much really important and valuable stuff, in my opinion, Michael. I couldn't be more grateful to you. It's another thing that happens, at least that it's been my experience, is that when you do get into a better overall vibration and you're acting and doing things from an authentic place, it is amazing the people that get thrown into your path. And
it's very cool,
isn't it? It's and when you and I met at an event about a month ago from the time that we're recording this, I just thought, oh man, they're going to have to pull us apart, because I think that this guy and I could probably spend a lot of time together and come up with some neat creations. And I'm hoping that is in both of our futures, because it really is fun, and I'm very, very grateful to have created a new friendship with you, and that you would be willing to spend this time with me and anybody who listens, because it's really, really valuable to hear. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you, and I can't thank you enough. I'm very grateful, and from the moment I met you that night, it was great, and I like your energy, and you're just a good, authentic person, and I think people see that, and it's great to share my story and to have listeners to hear my story. And if I just change one thought, I did a session with my NLP coach, and before the call, the day before, she said, set an intention to have a powerful shift tomorrow in the call. She said, everything I say for that hour doesn't have to resonate. She said, only one thing I say has to resonate. Only one thing has to create a shift energetically, right? And, sure enough, there was a powerful moment in that call where I had never met her. She's in Toronto. I'm in London. We're on the phone, not Skype. And we both have the cold shivers at the same time. Energetically, we felt the same shift. So it's a very cool thing. We are all connected no matter how far we are. And synchronicity is powerful. And embrace it, appreciate it. Is universe telling you that you're on the right track. So what floats your boat, and go do it, and believe in yourself and be yourself. Yeah.
Good luck with the book release. I know it'll be a smashing success. I'm really happy for you, really proud for you as well. And then maybe the next time we get together, we can talk about that, and maybe even get the guitars out too if you're game.
I was going to say, we're definitely going to play music too, for sure.
I'm up for that. Michael, thank you so much.
All right, take care. You have a great evening.
If you'd like to connect with Michael, you can do that online at his website at www.doyleitin.com. Doyle is Doyle, and then itin, I-T-I-N. Doyleitin.com is the hub for all things Michael Doyle. You can find him on Facebook at facebook.com/doyleitin. Same on Instagram, instagram.com/doyleitin, and that's his handle on Twitter as well, at Doyle it in. I know he'd love to hear from you. If you're new to the podcast, or quite frankly, even if you're not, but if you liked this episode and the story from Michael Doyle, you'll probably like these ones too. Episode 36 with Jason McKenzie. It's called Sharing Vulnerability and Growing Together. Jason has a lot of commonality with Michael in that, like me, we're about the same age. Jason also is really into fitness, also overcame alcohol, and really has embraced his authentic nature. So I think that you'll like that episode if you're still listening to this one. Episode 33 with my buddy Derek Botten. It's called Embracing Contentment and Letting Go. And he's also, like me and like Michael and like Jason, let go of alcohol, but even more than that, got to a point where he really decided that he was going to do what he wanted to do, something that he was passionate about in his life, and I've never seen him happier. That's certainly worth a listen. In episode 31, along the lines of music and the East Coast, those two flavors that Michael brought to this episode, they certainly run through episode 31, called Putting Creativity in Motion with Jeff Boudreau of Jeff's Musical Car. He is full of great stories, most of them related to music, and all of them about having a creative idea and then not listening to those negative voices, but just going and doing it. Jeff, with his Jeff's Musical Car YouTube channel, what he does is he invites musicians to ride in the backseat of his car, do a quick interview, and perform a song acoustically while he videotapes that. And then he makes a little video out of it, and it has really turned into quite a phenomenon. That was a fun episode. It's episode number 31. You can find those and all archived episodes at noschedulemanpodcast.com or on iTunes as well. You can reach me at kevinbulmer.com. noscheduleman.com will take you to the same place. All my social channel links are up there in the upper right-hand corner, as is the sign-up for our email list. And I do hope you'll join me on this journey, and please do add your voice to mine. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll join me next week on the No Schedule Man podcast.
Just a little deja vu.